Okay, hello everyone and welcome to HTML. Today I have an amazing guest with me, Ruthie Manopla Dabbah, right? Mm-hmm. And today we're discussing everything on eating disorders. Disordered About My Eating Disorder is the title of this podcast. And I just want everyone to know that this took us a while to prepare. Like me and Ruthie have been going back and forth about this for like probably a month.
100%.
Yeah, because this is a big podcast. And while it might be tough to explore publicly, I also feel that people need to know this information. It could really benefit people and, just have people less in the dark, you know?
Sure.
So, and it's ultimately to help people in the long run. So I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah,
and
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on. So let me just introduce Ruthie. So Ruthie is a licensed therapist. She specializes in seeing many young girls in the community. She specializes in eating disorders. And so we're going to really get to hear a lot about, what young women really have to go through and certain struggles. And not only that, how young girls might be able to advance through those struggles. So we're planning on putting this podcast into two elements, right? So what we're trying to do is the first part is really about awareness, about education, understanding. And the second part, we're mainly going to focus on how to, once we really get the education down, how to help people deal with those problems if they have those, right? And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Anything you want to start out with?
No, I think that's great. Like, I'm excited to get into it. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot for people to learn, and I think it's going to be great.
Yeah,
let's do it.
This is going to be awesome. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing I want to get into is some statistics, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is what I have. So by 18, 4 out of 5 women are on strict diets in the U.S. Between 80 to 90% of college women are on serious diets. Other research shows that women say that they're embarrassed to eat dessert, carbs, pasta around friends. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but we also have girls starting diets as young as 8 years old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very accurate.
Really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to tell me a little bit more about that? So is that what you kind of see here and there sometimes? Is that
100%. Like, I mostly work with young adults and teens, but when you backtrack things, they were always thinking about their body and food and dieting, even from a young age. Sometimes it's more like with puberty, because that's when your body tends to change. But sometimes it is as little as 8 years old. If people are bullying you about your body, if your parents are being really strict about your weight, they will already be in this mindset of, I need to change my body, and how do I do that? And the way that we learn to do that is through dieting.
Uh-huh. So it sounds like there's a lot of tension being placed already from such a young age.
Yeah.
Right? From multiple factors. So you said many things. So many factors. So family, probably social media as well, which we're going to get into.
Yes.
So family, social media, and what was the other thing you said? I think
just like other external factors, like friends, if you're being bullied,
right?
Anything
The bullying,
like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I guess, when do you think these mindsets start to get ingrained into young girls, young adults? When do you feel like are they adults? Are they? It's more in the teenage.
You're saying the eating disorder mindset.
Yeah.
I think it really depends. The thing about eating disorders is that they start off with regular behaviors that most people will do. Most people will be on a diet at least once in their life. Most people will try to, change their weight a little bit. So they start off with normal behaviors, but then it's the people with eating disorders who kind of take it too far and they kind of cross the line with it. Right. So that's really, what age? It really depends. It depends on what's going on at home. Depends on what's going on outside the home. But typically we see it happens more in high school and things like that. And it depends. Sometimes it can get stricter in adulthood.
Right. Yeah.
It's really individual. Mm-hmm. I can't really give you one answer. There's not one age.
Well, yeah, because it's general. But I really like what you said about, and I want to segue into what you said about the line between eating disorder and just, I guess, disordered eating or just trying to diet. Because a lot of girls that's a big question.
Like the difference between the two.
Yeah, what's the difference? People really want to know that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So disordered eating, right, or any of the typical behaviors that you see people doing where we would maybe define it as like a little bit of an unhealthy relationship with food. So people who have this kind of rule in their brain, like I don't eat until 1 o'clock because I don't want to open my appetite, or if they're counting calories, or if they try to stay away from carbs. So those are that's like disordered eating, right? Or if they don't eat all day, but then they'll eat all their calories at night in a way. So that's disordered eating.
Like struggling, I guess, or...
Struggling back and forth.
Right.
But the difference is that let's say you have this rule in your head that you're not going to eat until 1 o'clock every day. But then if your friends are going out for brunch at 11, the disordered eating behavior, it doesn't really take over in the sense of it doesn't drive your decisions. Like you will give up the rule, you'll break the rule to go hang out with your friends. Eating disorders are very different.
It's more of a grip, it sounds like.
Exactly. Eating disorders, they consume your life and they start to make all your decisions for you. They tell you who you can hang out with, where you can go, what you can eat, what you can't eat, how much you can eat, what time you can eat. And the thing about eating disorders is their rules are very strict. And when you have an eating disorder, you need to follow the rules no matter what. Otherwise, the distress is too much to handle. And the real difference between eating disorders and disordered eating is that eating disorders have physical and psychological impairments, right? Like it will cause distress. There's physical symptoms that we'll talk about. There's emotional symptoms. It consumes your entire life. That's the main difference.
Yeah. So, and what I really heard from that is, it sounds to me like when someone has an eating disorder, it's more of a personality that takes over. It's its own, and I know we spoke about, we're going to bring in IFS for people, but that to me is what I really got out of that. It's like this whole, it's like another factor. And I guess maybe something that could help, I don't know, something that came to mind, because this is how I help people with anxiety. I say, are you talking or is anxiety talking? Are you talking or is OCD talking? Are you talking or is the eating disorder talking?
100%, right? We very much, at least I like to think of the eating disorder as like, it's definitely a part of you. And it's kind of like this bully that exists inside your head, right? There's you, and then there's this bully inside your brain that's basically bossing you around all day, telling you what to do, pulling the strings. It gives you like a bone here and there where you think you have a sense of control, but the truth is you're really just a puppet, and the eating disorder is pulling the strings.
I love that. So that's a great. Well, I don't. But that's a great line because.
But it's the truth.
But I think that helps people really differentiate because our question is, how do we differentiate between disordered eating and eating disorder? I think something that, to put it together, it's kind of like, if you feel that you're literally being controlled by something else, right?
But sometimes you don't realize
you don't even know.
So that's the thing. Like one of the early signs that you might be developing an eating disorder or already have one is if you're thinking about food, body, exercise, and it's becoming a stress, right? Exercise shouldn't be a stress. It should be something you enjoy doing. Food shouldn't be a stress. It should be something that you enjoy doing, a part of your life. Your body, it shouldn't be so important that it's taking up 80% of your brain space. Those are all signs that you either have a budding eating disorder or you have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
So I think that's like important to know.
Yeah. So it sounds like it becomes this obsessional thing that really takes over. And I guess it's important and you said most people don't even, some girls might not even realize that. And so
no, they think everyone's worrying about their body this much, right? But they're not.
Right.
People with eating disorders are,
right?
But the truth is, most women, probably all, have felt some sort of body dissatisfaction in their life, right? Which is when you kind of look in the mirror and you're like, I don't like this part of me.
Which is normal.
Exactly, 100% normal. But the difference between someone who has an eating disorder and someone who's experiencing body dissatisfaction is someone with an eating disorder cannot move on from it. It'll ruin their entire day. If they look in the mirror and they see something they don't like, their whole day's ruined. They can't focus. They can't hang out with their kids. They can't work.
They're
they can't
devoured
socialize.
by it.
They're being consumed.
Got it. Wow. Okay, great. No, that really answered it for me. Thank you. And I also wanted to go over, so I guess the two main types, there are different types of eating disorders, but, I guess the two main types, I guess I really want to go over with you today is anorexia and bulimia. So, one more thing, what we could really talk about? We could also talk about, one last thing I wanted to go off on this topic in general about eating disorders, BMI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So I think you told me, when we were preparing for this, that you feel like it's total like BS, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about? So first, what's BMI?
So BMI is basically like where your weight is at. So we have this from when we're little, right? We go to the doctor, they look at us on the growth chart, they tell us your BMI is either healthy or you're underweight or you're overweight. But the thing is that when we're looking at eating disorders, really doesn't matter what your BMI is because, and we'll get into this when we talk about anorexia, but you can have all the same symptoms as someone who has a really low BMI in regards to anorexia, and you could have a pretty healthy BMI. You could even be overweight.
Really?
Right? Yeah, and you could have the same symptoms because everyone has like a set weight point. And there's no way to genuinely know what someone's set weight point is. But what we do know is that when we don't eat enough and our body goes below that set point, we start to experience the effects of anorexia.
So it's more subjective.
100%.
Right.
Yes, it's absolutely
It's kind of like what you said
subjective.
earlier. You can't put it in a box, and the DS, the manual that I guess, diagnoses, tries to put in a box, but like,
It does the best that it can, right? But it
Right.
can't cover all the bases.
of course, yeah, but it does the best. I like that you said the best because we do need it, but it's trying in the best way that it can.
It definitely gives us a structure. I personally don't like to get so caught up in the labels. Like if
Same.
someone's coming in and they're like, I'm thinking about my body 80% of the time, but they don't have any of the other symptoms, I would treat it the same way that I would treat anorexia.
Because the treatment is the same regardless.
Exactly, because they're still obsessing over their body and they're still experiencing a lot of distress when it comes to food, exercise, or body. So they need the help.
So that's very important for, I guess, people to know is I think people might get stuck on, do I have anorexia? Do I not? Do I have bulimia?
Right,
Do I
I'm not emaciated.
It doesn't matter, because if you do feel like something is taking you over, and we're going to talk about that because it's very important to catch it early.
Absolutely.
It is very, why not get the help? And we're also going to talk about the embarrassment that comes from that, because a lot of girls, it's
the shame.
There's a lot of shame. There's a huge shame component when it comes to eating disorders, and a lot of girls try to hide it, amongst their friends, amongst their family. But we're going to get into all of that.
I know, we're jumping.
Yeah, it's good, but because it's all connected, but it's really good. Okay, so let's get into anorexia. Yeah. So, is it okay if I start with something?
100%.
This is what I have. So it's when a person severely restricts their food intake, which leads to low body weight. It's when girls feel fat when they're not, intense fear of gaining weight or becoming fat, and either have a body image distortion issue, self-esteem issue that's tied to their body and weight, or denial of the problem. Those are the symptoms. And we also know that 75% of anorexics have depression. And that is actually the most deadly. This is crazy. I was shocked to hear this in my college class. It is the most deadliest disorder in the DSM.
I believe it.
More than depression. Anorexia is the most deadliest disorder.
No one believes me when I say that.
It's crazy.
People do not believe it. They're shocked.
Yeah.
I think substance abuse is catching up. But yeah, anorexia is the leading cause of death when it comes to
It's
mental
horrible.
illnesses.
Yeah. And a part of me just wants to ask why. But I think we know why, but I guess it's good to explain it to people. People don't understand that when anorexia really takes over, it takes over.
Yeah, and it's a physical disease at the same time, right? It's one of the mental illnesses that it's not only in the brain, it's also affecting the body significantly, right? So that's why we'll get into treatment, but typically, like, if someone's severely anorexic, like, you need a team, you need a doctor, you need a therapist, you need a dietitian. It's not just like, come into my office and we'll figure this out. Like, you need to be monitored to make sure that you're going to be okay medically stable.
Yeah, because there's a tight relationship with eating disorders. Well, obviously, when it comes to your mind and your body, it's not always like that when it comes to other things that we treat.
Yeah, like PTSD and
anxiety, right? It does affect the body, but not to this degree.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I also want so I guess I kind of want to help people really understand the personality type of an anorexic. So, I really want to break this down for people. So you ever heard of the 5-factor model of personality, Ocean? Remember that?
Yeah.
Like in college? Yes.
School, years ago.
I'm big on that.
Okay.
So I love personality psychology, and it's the most empirically tested forms of psychology out there. It's true cross-culturally. It always shows up. There are 5 factors that constantly show up. One of the factors of so there's extroversion, which is the positive dimension domain. There's neuroticism, the negative dimension, agreeableness, conscientiousness, which is the hardworking domain, orderly domain, and then we have the openness. I'm going to focus on conscientiousness.
Yeah.
We know that conscientiousness, which is the hardworking domain, the organized domain, the orderly, the perfectionist domain, yes. Anorexics are usually high in conscientiousness.
Yeah.
They go together. They're very high in orderliness, perfectionism.
They're a perfect match.
Yeah.
They're a perfect match, and it's because here's the thing about perfectionism. It can be really adaptive, right? It gets you places. You accomplish your goals. You create a career. You create a life for yourself. You do everything near perfect, right? Because we know perfectionism does not exist as much as we want it to.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you have a perfectionist personality, you are a perfect candidate for an eating disorder because, like we said, eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia, they have very strict rules. And no one does better with strict rules than a perfectionist, because perfectionists try their best. They'll do anything in their power. They will sacrifice anything in their life to not break rules.
Because here's the thing. It's useful to be skinny as a girl.
There are perks to an eating disorder, 100%.
Yeah. Yes.
There are perks.
Yes. And
You get the body you want. It numbs the feelings. and people in thinner bodies do sometimes get treated differently. Like, we don't fight the reality on that.
1,000%.
Right? So, we have to kind of be realistic too, that when we're asking you to recover from an eating disorder, we are asking you to give up a lot. Eating disorders also really numb anxiety. And so to say, hey, I'm going to give up my eating disorder and jump back into all my anxiety and all my painful experiences, that's a pretty big ask.
So it also seems to me that there's many functions that an eating disorder serves. That's what I'm hearing from you. So that's that list that you're talking about, right? And so there's different reasons for people developing disordered eating disorders.
Yeah.
So I guess numbing is one of them.
Well, first of all, on the surface, your eating disorder, that bully in your head, has two goals. On the surface, it's to keep you thin, right? Or to give you the body that you want, whatever image is in your head. Everyone has a different one, but similar. And to keep you trapped in your eating disorder. Those are the two goals, to keep you thin and to keep you trapped in your eating disorder. And it will fight anyone and anything that is willing to get in its way, right? So that is,
It's dirty. It's sneaky. It's a sneaky fighter.
it's a bully, right? It's no different than a bully that like you encounter in school, right? It will continue to bully you, and the more you give into it, the more it keeps bullying you. So it's very complicated. And so some of the functions, like, yes, one, it tends to numb trauma. It tends to numb our anxiety about other things, right? So it increases our anxiety about our body and food and exercise.
It keeps you focused on that so that you don't have to focus on it.
Exactly.
Yep.
You fixate on something that's more in your control, so you don't have to think about your parents who are getting divorced. So you don't have to think about the fact that you're lonely and you have no friends, right? It's much easier to focus on your body than to think about all those things that are so much more painful and out of your control.
I've noticed that people sometimes, when they're having external issues, so control is a big word.
100%.
Yeah, and so people, when there's so many external things going on in their lives, all of a sudden they get up on the scale in the morning. They're like, wait, I could control this.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's a distraction in a lot of ways.
It's a distraction, and it's a whole new goal. That becomes your identity.
Yeah.
Because it's better to identify with that than to have to identify and deal with other things in your life. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So this is huge for people. I want to let's pause for a minute so that people really let that sink in, that point, because that's a huge point, that your eating disorder, not your eating disorder, I guess your focus,
Your fixation
on eating, your fixation on
body and exercise.
Body, exercise, all of those things. Check into yourself. This isn't always the case, but check into yourself and ask yourself, am I using that as a way to make myself feel better and distract myself from other things that are going on in my life?
For sure, right? Like when we talk about like feeling fat, right? It always amazes me because everyone, most people, at least once in their life, have felt fat. But fat is not a feeling. And how could it be that someone with this BMI feels fat and someone with that BMI feels fat? It doesn't make sense, right? Because fat is just a word, right? And it's pretty much an objective word.
So I guess it comes down to the meaning, you're saying?
We attribute it to mental processing, right? It's all happening in the mind, because someone will look in the mirror in the morning and then they'll look in the mirror 2 hours later and all of a sudden they'll feel fat. But you didn't feel fat in the morning, and we know it's physically impossible for your body to gain any fat in 2 hours, right? So the only thing we can say is it's mental processing, and there's actually like 3 factors to feeling fat. Either you've become more aware of your body, so someone's made a comment on your body, or you're sweating, or you're jumping and you're noticing your body move around, or your clothes are tight. So that's an increased body awareness. That can make people feel fat. Second thing is a physical feeling, right? So either we feel full or we feel bloated or we are bloated, right? Being bloated and feeling full after a meal is not the same thing as being fat, but people tend to equate it, right? I feel full, I ate, my stomach is full, it's expanded, I am now fat, okay? And then the last thing is just like a feeling state that we don't want to be in, sad, lonely, depressed, right? So to your point, yes, if someone's feeling fat an hour after feeling fine, you always want to ask yourself, like, has there been any increase of body awareness? Am I feeling something that I'm trying to avoid? Or was there, like, did I just eat? Or am I bloated? Like, am I on my period, right? Things like that. It's the 3 things you always want to look at when you're feeling fat.
Absolutely phenomenal. And I feel like when it comes down to those 3 things, the thing that kind of puts it all together, something that they have in common, is that these are ways that the eating disorder, that bully,
keeps you trapped.
Right, yeah. It knows it's using these tricks.
It's one of the main maintaining mechanisms of an eating disorder, right? So we talk about like how the eating disorder keeps us trapped because it wants to keep us thin. But there's a huge behavior piece to eating disorders. There are a lot of behaviors that keep us trapped, and those behaviors need to be addressed. But maybe we'll get into that when we talk about how we treat eating disorders.
Yeah. So I think, but just to, I guess, finish off on that point, awareness is huge. Being aware of when, like all of a sudden, if a girl is saying, okay, I'm so fat, like out of nowhere, go back and
it's never out of nowhere.
Say that again. I love that. That's a great line. It's never out of nowhere.
It's true. There's always like some sort of trigger. Some people are kind of like, well, nothing really happened, but like what happened yesterday, right? Sometimes there's a delayed reaction, but usually something, whether it's a thought, a memory, something external will trigger a certain sort of emotion. It doesn't have to be something that happened to you. It can be a memory. It can be you saw something. It can be you smelled something.
Yeah, and I think slowing things down for girls, and this is also a problem. I think this is personally what I feel. I feel like we're in we know we're in such a fast-paced world, but I also feel like that serves a function, because the more fast-paced the world is, the less we have to think, and the less we have to be aware of things that bother us. So, I guess slowing it down in that moment and just being aware of, okay, what just happened to me? And that takes strength, by the way.
Yes, because humans hate feeling uncomfortable.
And we hate
and
acknowledging
sitting with our feelings is very uncomfortable.
So annoying.
And eating disorders help us close up those feelings.
Yeah.
That's the numbing piece, right? Like we don't have to feel sad, lonely, bored, depressed. Eating disorders have a way of kind of closing those feelings off. So a lot of my work is getting people used to just sitting with their feelings. As uncomfortable as it is, you'll live a much happier life if you can get comfortable with the discomfort. Yeah.
I'll bring in this. One time I read in Mark Manson's book. A lot of people heard about this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough. You ever heard of it?
Yeah.
He said something really cool, and he said that, the more that we kind of try to be happy, the more sad we are, and the more that we kind of accept those feelings in the first place and make room and space for those parts and feelings, the more happier that will actually be in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The key to all hard things is acceptance.
That's
the reality, because life is hard. There's no way around it. Nobody's life is perfect. Like, you can spend your time and energy fighting reality, or you can accept reality, and then it gives you the space, the brain space, to figure out what to do next.
And sometimes people have to learn that the hard way. They go to the ends of the earth to try to control certain things, and they have to then they realize, like how little you are in control of. The only thing that you control is your reaction. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize that acceptance doesn't mean being okay with it. It doesn't mean giving your approval. It just means that you're acknowledging your reality and you're acknowledging what you can and can't do about it.
I like that, because I had a big problem with acceptance.
Okay.
And then personally, I always felt that acceptance just means, being okay.
Have to be happy about it.
Right. Just accepting your whole situation. That's not true at all. And you just made that differentiation. That's something I had to learn by myself, which is that, I guess, acceptance doesn't mean that you're accepting everything in your life right now. You're accepting what has happened to you. You're accepting external factors, but you're also taking charge and responsibility for doing whatever change that you can in your life. Love it. Great.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add on to that, or?
No, I think the best way that I love to explain it to people is, if you think about like a beach ball in a pool, right? It won't sink no matter how hard. Like, if you're trying to get rid of the beach ball and you're trying to get rid of it by sinking it down, you're going to waste a lot of energy pushing it down, and it's going to keep popping up, and then you push it down again, and it keeps popping up. But when you kind of accept, like, this beach ball will never sink in the water, then you have space to kind of say, like, okay, well, what's another way that I can get rid of it? Let me just take it out of the pool. Obviously, it's not always that simple, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to waste your time and energy fighting reality, because it never works.
That's a huge. You can't fight nature. You can't fight reality.
Yeah.
And every time you try to bend that ruler, it's just gonna snap back at you. So.
Yeah, there are certain things that you can do, but until you accept the reality, you can't think clearly to figure out what those things are.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I guess to just finish off anorexia, because I don't think we got to this point. The nuts and bolts of it. So the two types of anorexia. You want to just help people understand
like we
that?
said, we see a lot of restriction, we see excessive exercise, we see that intense fear of gaining weight. And there's two types of anorexia, in the sense of some people completely restrict, where they will, either eat a minimum amount of calories or whatever their rules are. Everyone has different rules, and we can get into the rules. But the other type, which is the binging purging type, is when people will restrict. They'll have that restriction piece, but they will also binge, and they will also throw up, right? And so here's the thing about the binges. Typically in people with anorexia, we have this conversation of, is your binge subjective or objective? Okay, and so for people who don't know what that means, what objective means is an objective binge would be something that a typical person would say, yes, that is an extremely large amount of food. Like if
Right,
someone
like
were to
eating
sit,
like I guess literally 3 dozen boxes of cookies or something
right, or
like that.
entire pie of pizza or a pie
Right.
and a half or whatever.
That's an obvious
It's
binge.
an obvious overeating and obviously, excessive amount of food. But then what a subjective binge looks like is, if someone eats a slice in half and they feel like it's a binge, but why do they feel like it's a binge? One, their anorexia or their eating disorder is telling them that it's a lot of food. And two, because they have that same sensation of a lack of control, feeling like they're on autopilot, feeling like they can't stop even if they want to.
So that subjective binge, I guess what it looks like is literally like eating one cookie, something like that.
It can feel like a binge because my eating disorder told me I'm not supposed to have a cookie. So that now I had that cookie, I broke the rule, I binged.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
And I want to tie this into, 100%. And this ties into my treatment of OCD so much.
There's a lot of overlap.
There's tons of the obsessional point where it literally takes over. And I see that the treatment, part of the treatment is the same, which is making people aware that it's literally another part, it's another bully, it's something that, and it tricks you.
Oh,
And it'll do
forget
whatever it can to trick you. And I like what you said earlier, that it'll do whatever it can to survive. It's like a parasite that kind of like will do anything that it can to sort of be there to make you focus on the eating and not on it.
Yeah.
Right?
It won't go down without a fight.
Yeah. And then it wants to distract. It's like, oh, there's no eating disorder. There's no problem here. Just focus on this. Make sure you watch your diet. Make sure you watch
and
your
you're
exercise.
doing great. Look, you're following the rules. I'm so proud of you. And
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems is that we don't only get that from the eating disorder bully in our head.
You get that from everywhere.
Exactly, right?
Right.
If you're dieting and you're losing weight and your friends are seeing like, wow, you're really sticking to your diet. Like, wow, how are you so disciplined? Like, wow, you exercise every day. I wish I didn't get lazy. I wish I could be like you. And like, who doesn't like to hear that, right? We're humans. We like to be recognized for our accomplishments, and dieting is an accomplishment in our culture. And exercising is an accomplishment.
Yeah, and I want to get into that later because I think you said something once over the phone with me that it's dangerous. The danger of compliments.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. So let's go into bulimia, right? So we talk about anorexia. What's going on with bulimia? Should I just spat out some things?
Yeah,
so I
go
have
ahead.
more that it's more of a feeding frenzy. It's a different personality also. I feel it's more of an impulsive personality. Anorexics are more perfectionistic. They have things orderly. They have things down pat. Bulimics are more of the. Sometimes I see this. They're more extroverted in personality. They're more, they can be more social. But they're also more impulsive. Feeding frenzy of, where they have tons of calories and purging. 80% of bulimics have other psychiatric disorders, which is huge. And yeah, so do you want to, I guess, highlight the main difference between bulimia and anorexia?
Yeah, so let me just say one thing. Here's the thing about anorexia. You don't have to be emaciated to have the disorder, right?
Really? Oh yeah, you said this earlier. Yeah, you're right.
Definitely not, right?
Yep.
You do
It's
not.
my college, what they taught me. Yeah.
And it's what everyone thinks, and it's what everyone knows. It's what we've been taught over and over. But like I said, someone can have all the same symptoms and all the same medical complications as someone with anorexia and not be paper thin and not be emaciated, and you can't see their bones. And like I told you, they can even be overweight or at a healthy BMI.
Yeah.
So we have to be kind of very careful about, like, all eating disorders can be invisible on some level. There are the visible
Even
ones.
anorexia.
Even anorexia, and that's what we call atypical anorexia. When you have all the same symptoms, all the same medical complications, but you don't have the extremely low BMI, right?
So for people watching, what's the main difference then? Because that's what they told me in college.
The main difference between what?
Anorexia and bulimia.
The main difference between anorexia and bulimia is that bulimia typically doesn't have that strong restriction, right? So you'll eat, you'll have a lot of binging episodes, and then you'll do whatever you can to get rid of it. So whether that's excessively exercising, taking laxatives, or vomiting. So if someone is binging or, eating a lot of food, and then they're taking laxatives every night, they would fall under the category of bulimia. But again, I don't like to get so caught up in the labels because even with the personalities, like, yes, people with bulimia, maybe they tend to be more impulsive. People with anorexia maybe tend to be more perfectionist. But the truth is, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Like, there's plenty of people with anorexia who don't have that perfectionist personality.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
really, it's like so individualized.
Really? Yeah. So it's hard to put in a box.
Exactly. I don't like to put things in boxes.
Nah, I hear it. Yeah. So I guess my next question is, what leads to binges?
It's a great question. So we also have binge eating disorder, right? Where someone's just binging, but they're not getting rid of the food. Whether it's, again, through exercise, not always throwing up. People think bulimia is only throwing up, but if someone's exercising for 4 hours a day to get rid of their binge and it's causing them distress, they would still fall under that category. So what causes a binge, right? So typically, we always look at how someone's eating first, because if someone is restricting their eating or they're not eating regularly, the human body will take over, and when it's hungry, it will go on autopilot. So you're never really supposed to go into a meal starving, right? Because then your mind kind of gets lost and your body takes over. So we have to first rule out that. Like, you know how when someone comes into therapy and they're like, my back is hurting. Okay, rule out the medical. And if it's not medical, it's probably something else that's more psychological. So it's the same thing here. For us to deal with the psychological part of binges, we have to first rule out the physical part. So we always kind of get someone on a regular eating schedule and make sure they're eating enough. So if someone's not eating enough calories in the day, they're very likely to binge at night. Very, very likely. Maybe here and there they can hold back, but typically they'll eventually fall
and it
into
might
a
not
binge.
even be an eating disorder. It's just, their schedule, their routine, there's many factors. We don't know.
Exactly.
So we're going to have to diagnose properly.
That's why I'm saying it doesn't always fit into a box. Like
Right.
sometimes people change their eating patterns and they're really okay, right? But sometimes there's more to it. So that's one thing that causes the binge, right? The physiological factor. But then the other thing that could cause a binge is a feeling, right? Because binges, just like anorexia, they serve a purpose. So binges can numb our feelings, they can distract us, they can give us a break from our stressful life. It could be the only time that we feel like we can let go of control because we're always trying to control. It can be like we have a lot of pressure at work or at home, and then the binge is like, okay, I finally get to release that pressure.
Right.
It's a coping skill just like any other. So we always have to ask ourselves, if I'm eating regularly, then I know it's not that. So it has to be a feeling. There's always, like, after we deal with the eating patterns, there's always residual binges that we look at. And that's when we get into the emotional, the mood, the events, things like that are contributing to it.
And I think it's also, just to note off that, to help people, in order to help people to do that, people can figure that out on their own. It's easier with the therapist because the therapist brings in a lot of awareness. But I'm also having a separate episode on that, by the way, on what therapy is, and therapy.
I love that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. But like, guys, tune in. That's gonna be awesome. But therapy is mainly to help people. Part of therapy really helps people become aware of the things that they're unaware of. And so people might be unaware of how they even got into that. What kind of set off the flame of that that fire, that binge. But I also think, you could do that without a therapist. If you can, you could try your best to literally just, again, slow down, take a minute, and honestly, you have to be honest with yourself. Look back as to where it started, where it came from. What do you think set that off?
Yeah.
And then write that out. You could write that out.
Journal it, track it, for sure.
Yeah.
There's always patterns, and I think even with regular eating, like, people can try on their own. Like, we should typically be eating every 3 to 4 hours. And if you're not eating, if your meals are not bulked up enough, like, you will get hungry in an hour. Like, I always kind of tell people that I work with, if you think about babies, right? They cry and you give them their milk, and then halfway through the bottle, they stop crying. But we continue, we make them finish the bottle, or we give it to them and they eat it, because if they only eat till they stop crying, if we eat just until we're not so hungry anymore, in an hour from now, we'll be hungry again. Just like a baby, if they drink half their bottle, they'll be hungry in an hour. We need to give them enough so that they hold off for 3 to 4 hours. And it's the same thing with adults. People tend to forget this, that we also need to feed ourselves in order for us to, get through that 3 to 4 hour stretch. And if you don't give yourself enough, then you're only going to make it an hour. And then by the time the 3 to 4 hour mark comes, you're going to be very hungry, and then your body's going to take over, and then you're likely to binge.
You know what's funny? I read a whole chapter on that, because on specifically how we treat others better than we treat ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so you'll actually treat your pet better. You'll literally give your pet more medication. Like, if you're prescribed medication, you'll make sure your pet gets more the right medication dosage, schedule, routine, everything, but not for yourself. And I think there's a reason for that. There's many reasons for that, but sometimes people don't really. Sometimes people feel that they shouldn't treat themselves. I don't. Sometimes you feel like you don't deserve to be treated as much as you need to be, like as well as enough as you need to be treated. And so you have to kind of treat yourself as someone you're responsible for helping.
Yeah,
you really do. And people kind of get stuck in that, and I feel that because they push it off. I also realize that people kind of push it out of their minds.
They do.
People don't, it's a lot to deal with. People don't want to be aware of, because eating, sometimes people get lazy.
Of course, everyone does.
Yeah. Like you really have to go out of your way to make sure that you're healthy.
Yes, I think, and I've been saying, to so many people, like, food has become this thing that we blog about, that we post about, that we experience with friends, that, or the opposite, right? Diet culture tells us to stay away from, it's bad. But what people tend to forget, that the original purpose of food is to help our body function, for us to survive, for things to work, right? If you have a remote and the batteries are dying, like the remote's going to start twitching. It's going to start, the volume button doesn't work. Like, it's the same thing for us. We need food to function properly and to survive. And I think people forget that that's a function of food. Yes, it's something to enjoy and to socialize and for it to be a part of your life, but it also helps everything in your body work.
Whenever someone comes into my office, the first and they're experiencing anxiety or depression, the first thing I ask them is, how is your diet looking?
Yeah. And how's your eating and sleeping?
And how's your sleeping?
Yeah, basic needs.
Jordan Peterson said the same. So I got that from him. He said the same exact thing, and he's huge, and he always said this, and I'm like, really, like sometimes your mood, your emotions, your literally your whole head could, your psychological condition can be off just because you're not getting enough sleep, or just because you're not
100%.
eating the right breakfast in the morning. And I always tell this. I don't care if you don't like it to eat breakfast. I don't care. You don't have to like it. It could taste like carb, like you have to eat protein in the morning. You have to eat a fatty protein breakfast. You have to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Eating isn't always supposed to, yes, of course, eating is nice and it's, luxury at some points, but at the same time, especially these days, but at certain times you have to remember that you literally have to eat certain food, especially foods that you might not like, just to take care of yourself, even if you're not in the mood to eat breakfast in the morning.
And I think it goes back to like what we were saying about the difference between disordered eating and eating disorders, is that some people will skip breakfast every day for their entire life,
100%.
but they'll be okay, right? They won't develop an eating disorder. Will they be living to their best potential? Maybe not, because maybe a little fuel in the morning could give them a little more energy, but they'll be okay, right? Their functioning is not impaired and they'll be okay. That's the difference between having a disordered
Great differentiation.
eating and eating disorder.
Yep. And I guess to finish this point off, one last thing I want to add, if you're a person that does not eat in the morning, you have to start eating in the morning. You'll become so much healthier. You won't gain weight. You'll actually, the opposite, because what
your metabolism will be starting, yes.
Yeah. And not only that, how you stated that, you're more likely to have a binge at night. Many people don't eat in the morning and then they eat tons at night.
Yeah, they eat all their calories at night.
It's eat in the morning. Eat a heavy breakfast in the morning. Not carbs, not that garbage cereal. Eat, like egg whites or protein or a nice yogurt, something, whatever, whatever you.
Yeah. And I think, like, just on that note, I think something important for people to know is that one meal will not really change your weight, right? So the way we get stuck in like this binging cycle is that, well, let's say we binge at night or we eat more than we wanted to, which it happens, right? Sometimes you go out with your friends, you're in a restaurant, the food is so good, you're enjoying, you're overeating, and then you kind of go to sleep and you're like, all right, I'm gonna starve the next day, right? So many people do this, girls and boys, right? So I think people forget that like men also have eating disorders.
Yep.
But
I've treated some, by the way.
Right,
exactly.
You'd be surprised. I'm not surprised.
Well, not you.
Yeah, but people listening.
Right.
But yeah, so you'll have that binge at night or that overeating, we could even call it, and then you'll say, okay, I'll starve the next day. But all that's doing is keeping you in a cycle of restriction and binging, because you're gonna try to restrict and it may work, but then you're gonna end up binging either that night or the next day, right? When you're better off forgiving yourself and being compassionate and saying, this meal is not really gonna change my weight, right? It's maybe I'll be a little more bloated in the morning, et cetera, things like that. But at the end of the day, the best way to get back on track after overeating or binging is to get into a pattern of regular eating the next day, because it's the number one way to prevent overeating.
Love that. This is awesome for people listening, really. I hope people get a lot out of this, and I think they will. So I guess the next thing I want to move into is, real quickly, is what is the relationship between an eating disorder and an addiction? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, so there's a ton of overlap, because eating disorders and addiction, they both deal with strong urges. They both deal with compulsive behaviors that we want to stop, but we can't, or at least we try to, but it's just really, really difficult. And they both have that numbing quality and that like distraction quality.
That's very true.
Right. So even though they're ruining our lives on the outside, they are helping us numb what's happening internally. And so we
Serving
feel
a
better.
purpose, serving a function.
Exactly, right? It's a part of us that's serving a purpose, it's serving a function, and a lot of times we're not ready to give it up yet because it's really helping us, and we don't believe that we can survive without it because either we can't imagine what life would be like without the substance or the eating disorder, or we've never actually been able to experience it or we can't remember. And so while everything's getting kind of covered up and numbed on the inside, we don't realize because the eating disorder and addiction doesn't let us see it that our external life is falling apart.
Great point. So let's move into timing. So this is a huge part of our discussion that we need to have.
Yeah.
Does timing play a role in an eating disorder?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So if catching an eating disorder within the first year is crucial because the earlier you catch it, the more likely you are to recover, go through the process, and put it behind you. Now, eating disorders, again, they're coping skills. They're parts of us that come out to protect us. So unless we kind of like fully go through recovery, they sometimes people go in and out of them throughout their lives.
They can stick around.
Exactly.
Depending on how long you've had it for.
Exactly. So if if you've had an eating disorder for a really long time, the longer it sticks around, the stronger it gets, the harder it is to get rid of. Not that it's impossible. You absolutely can recover, but it's just harder, right? So catching it early is really important. And I think that's why it's important for everyone to know that if you feel like you even have disordered eating, like you don't need to have that full-blown eating disorder to seek help. You do not have to look emaciated to get help. If you have any preoccupation with food, body, exercise, that is your sign to like look into it.
Yeah.
And you might go to a therapist and they might say, listen, like this is typical. Odds are if you're getting to that point, it's probably something that needs to be worked on. But
catching it early is so much better.
Catching it early is better, and you don't need to have a full-blown eating disorder to deserve help.
Yeah.
You can work on it regardless. If something's stressing you out or occupying your mind too much, there's no reason to not get help.
So two things I want to say. So number one, it's a snowball effect, right? So the snowball is just going to get bigger, bigger, bigger. And so like you're saying, the earlier that you kind of move in there to stop it, the better. And so what I want people to kind of step away with, to tackle onto that is that there's no reason, you don't have to feel ashamed to seek that help early on. Again, treat yourself as someone you're responsible for helping.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to everyone trust me. Like we're humans. It doesn't have to be such a dramatic thing. It's like okay, whatever. Like literally everyone is struggling. Tons of girls are struggling with eating disorders.
Yep.
So you're not alone. You're not abnormal. It's normal. It's fine. Why not? All right,
Yeah.
trust me. And if you're afraid the therapist might judge you, they've seen this like
100 times.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon, right, to have an eating disorder. And the thing about like, if you have disordered eating, like you might like look up anorexia and say like, oh, I don't have those things. But disordered eating can very, very quickly spiral into a full-blown eating disorder. And once you realize that you're in it, like you are so knee deep in it, and then it just makes it much harder to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault. It's what was taught to us, right? And it starts off with like just the basic diet culture and like being great at dieting and having that like kind of progress, and then you kind of get stuck in the trap.
So I think this is for people, and I also don't want to get people too anxious about it either, right? So it's hard doing it on podcasts, but I guess a nice balance is check in with yourself and see if it's getting bigger, right?
Exactly.
I
If
think
it
that's
feels
good.
like it's taking up too much space, then yes, you should be either going to a therapist just to get evaluated. You don't need to go and say
Right.
like, I have an eating disorder. Go talk to a therapist, typically someone who specializes in eating disorders, and they will be able to tell you if there's something to work on.
Yeah,
or
should I
not.
worry about this? Should I not?
Exactly.
And you could even go. Some people go in once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks to check into somebody that they're comfortable. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think people need to know that we're not saying that if you don't like your body, you have an eating disorder. Most people do not like their body or certain parts of it.
Right.
So it's more about, if you don't like your body, does it still control your decisions? Does it ruin your day?
Interfering with my life.
Exactly. Is it impairing your functioning?
Right.
If it's not, great. Then you're just a regular person having a bad body day, and you have to pull out your regular skills to distract yourself or to focus on other things in your life that are more important. Right. But if if your body and exercise and food feels like the most important thing, that's a red flag.
Perfect. I don't think I have anything to add on to that. That's very well said. Okay. Next thing I want to move into. So the consequences of an eating disorder on the actual body, like you said earlier, this is this is where the mental meets the physical. in such a pronounced way. So I guess kind of let's go over that. So is it okay if I go over some stuff?
Of course, go ahead.
So I have low body. So this is what happens when the body can shut down. Not always, but it depends on the eating disorder, obviously. But where you have low body temperatures, low blood pressure, where you're feeling dizzy, where you have weak bones, where you have sensitive stomachs, even yellowing of the teeth.
Yes.
Stop getting periods. It's a slow process, but it's very. I guess that's pretty much it. Anything you want to add into? So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So you have the things, the physical, right, on the outside, right? Like your hair will start thinning, your nails will become weak, you'll lose your period. Well, that's on the inside, but you can see it on the outside.
Right.
So you'll have those outside things. You'll feel really cold. It's usually like the most common thing is that people will be like, I'm feeling really cold. Even in the summer, it doesn't matter if it's 90 degrees, they will be cold because the inside of their body is cold.
Right.
So you'll see a lot of that. And then you'll also see something more in anorexia, we call delayed gastric emptying, which is when the food that you're eating is sitting in your stomach for much longer than a person who has a healthy digestive system, right? And that's because your body doesn't trust you.
It's holding on to it.
Exactly. It's trying to get as many nutrients as it can. And your muscles also aren't working properly. So your stomach muscles aren't working properly. So the food kind of sits there. And I think that's such an important piece because when people are recovering from anorexia and they have to eat more and they're telling their friends and family, like, I can't, I'm so full. Even though they've just eaten an apple, they're not lying. They are so full. The food is sitting in their stomach much longer than the average person. Yeah. So one apple to them could be like 3 apples to you. So yes, they are really full. And a huge part of recovery, which is why you need support, is that you need to eat past fullness. Okay, and these sensations do go down, right, after a little bit, but it is really hard in the beginning because you do have a lot of physical pain in your stomach as you're trying to recover.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go through that period of coming back to baseline.
Exactly.
It's not always going to be like that.
Exactly. And I think to touch on losing your period, I think it's really important to say this, that a lot of people think that if they have an eating disorder and they lose their period, they kind of just wake up one day and it's gone. It doesn't work that way. Typically what we see is it will get lighter over time and it will get shorter in duration. Right? So if you're usually bleeding for 5 days, 1 month you'll bleed for 4 days and then it'll chop down to 3. And people are kind of saying, oh, well, my period's still here. Right.
It's not black and white.
It's a gray area.
It's a body, and your body isn't just gonna like it's not just literally just gonna stop, and so it's gonna slowly decline.
Exactly, but your eating disorder is telling you. Your therapist talking about you didn't lose your period. I'm like it's here. Look, right? So it's a lot trickery. Of that, like a lot of the eating disorder keeping you trapped because of the effects on the brain, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's really important for I think girls to know that if your period is lightening up in any way, whether it's duration or like just lightening up in general, that is also like a sign, right? Could it be from stress? Could it be from something else? For sure. But if that's happening, it's worth heading to the doctor. It's worth going to a therapist and getting yourself evaluated further. Like you don't need to sign up for therapy. You can go just to get evaluated. Like that's okay.
And I like that because it's lighter.
Exactly. There's no commitment.
Yeah.
Just to get the education.
Yeah. People are, because I think people are very scared to start, if they might potentially have an issue to start looking into it.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's very scary because then because you walking in, like people think though this admits that I have a problem.
Yeah.
That action of going to a therapist is literally showing I have a problem. I need to work, and it's bad. And so sometimes that actually could be helpful when people walk in and because it's like I've had people come in and usually the first session is like I think the most courageous session for people to come in because they're literally saying, hey, I need to work on something. But it doesn't always have to be that.
Exactly. It can be like, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, let's figure it out. I need a consultation instead of... Right.
Exactly. But the thing to remember is that like your eating disorder sometimes doesn't let you get through the door.
Yes.
Right? Which we'll talk about how to help people get treatment later. But that is a big part of it, that you'll, even like if your period's lightening up, you'll be like, this is strange, but your eating disorder will come in and say like, no, it's not. Like you're just stressed. Like you have a lot going on. And, it makes it a little bit harder to get treatment.
So I guess to put it all together, even if you have the bodily signs, it's very important for people to be aware of the trickery of that eating disorder part of you, it's so tricky, and it tricks you.
It becomes hard to trust yourself.
Yes.
Right? It's really trusting the eating disorder, but people with eating disorders, they combine the two. Like they don't see that they're separate until they learn that it's separate. And also
Separate
another thing that we forgot is also that a low heart rate, right, and low blood pressure.
Gotcha.
Like those are really dangerous, right? If your heart rate is really low, it's dangerous, right? You could have a heart attack.
So let's touch up on the brain right now. So so we went over physical signs and physical symptoms, but you kind of told me this over the phone that when you're not getting enough nutrients, you're literally going to get so much brain fog.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not going to be able to concentrate, and you're not going to you're literally not getting enough nutrients to even, I guess, think about what's your treat. You want to go more into that?
Yeah. So again, people forget. And we've all forgotten this, right? That you need food to make all the things in your body work. And that includes your brain, right? So it's your heart, your brain, things like that. We need these things for our brain to work. So now, when we're not eating enough, we have low levels of serotonin and dopamine, right? Those like happy chemicals in our brain. And those chemicals help regulate anxiety, right? And they help regulate impulse control, things like that. So here's how we get trapped in the eating disorder, and here's where the brain comes in. Typically, eating disorders will start. The person will have some sort of preoccupation with their body. Either they'll be unhappy with it, or they'll want to diet, or whatever the case is. They'll want to change their body. They put a lot of value on it, and they want it to be different. So now, once they're preoccupied, it will lead them to diet and restrict, right? Typically, we see that, right? They'll restrict their calories, whatever it is. Sometimes they take it too far. And when you restrict too much, you end up at a low set point, right? So we're saying, again, not a low BMI necessarily, sometimes yes, but even if you're below your set point, then you will experience the effects of being malnourished. And what are those effects? One of them is a really strong increase of anxiety. So what that does is I typically draw this out for people, but it increases that preoccupation with your body now. So that it started off with anxiety about your body, and now because you're malnourished and your anxiety has gone through the roof, it's even higher. So you have to restrict more, and then you end up more underweight, and then you end up with higher anxiety.
So it's a cycle.
It's a cycle, and you have to break the cycle, right? That's why we always start with the eating patterns again, because it's the restriction that's causing the low body weight. And only then can we deal with the preoccupation, because we have to decrease the anxiety first. So you have to feed your brain first, because the other effect on the brain is that it's on the executive part of our brain, the part that makes decisions, right? So that's why you see a lot of ambivalence too with people like, should I get treatment? Should I not? I want to get better, but I don't, because they can't make decisions the same way, because the part of their brain that makes decisions is not functioning properly, right? So they kind of go back and forth of like, why is this so hard to make the decision? Because your brain is not functioning properly. That's what it comes down to.
And I think I have a good point on that, because I also feel that once someone gets to that point, it's very helpful for them to know that so who they are at that moment isn't really them.
Right. It's not their personality.
It's not
a mask.
who they are. It's not who they are. There's literally something off with your brain in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah. And once you get healthier, the real you starts to come out.
Yes. I've had plenty of people say, like, I feel my personality coming
change.
back.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the mask somewhat comes off, right? It takes time, and it's really, really hard. But slowly you start to see, like, oh, I like to socialize again, and I'm interested in this again, right? Like a lot of people lose a lot of interest, like their mood gets affected.
Yeah.
Right? So I think when it comes to the brain is the main thing that is keeping us locked in the cycle. And until it gets fed, it's really, really hard to get out of it. And that's why when people are getting treated and in recovery, you need a lot of push and support from people around you, because your brain is not working to capacity or the way that it usually does, right? It also, the brain becomes very rigid, right? And there's no flexibility. So it keeps you following those rules. So if I tell someone, okay, we got to break this rule, like, you're telling me that you need to exercise every day, you got to skip a day, or you're telling me that, you can't eat carbs, you have to eat a carb. The brain is not capable of breaking the rules because it's so rigid. There's no flexibility.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's when, and again, the snowball effect, it gets more stuck, and that's why it's important that you get it early. And I also wanted to add one more thing, and then maybe we'll go into a little bit of the dysmorphia stuff we see with the brain.
Yeah.
Because you're saying something that's very, I took a course on perception, a very deep course on how we view the world. And what we find is that, we look at the world through value hierarchies, right? And so we put things into values. And so, you have to be serving something. right? And so you know, serving something in terms of, you know, an ideal. So what is your God, right? And so sometimes, you know, you'll end up, so when you have people with eating disorders and people will get into that obsessive trap, that is their value, that is their God, and that's all they see.
Yes.
You can't see anything else. That's all you perceive.
Tunnel vision.
You literally have tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And so your emotions, by the way, are dictated by how close you get to your goal or further away. So you could still feel, so here's something very cool that we know. So your emotions don't tell you if the goal that you're trying to reach is good or not. It just is a good goal or not. It just tells you if you're reaching it.
Exactly.
We feel good when we see ourselves going to, I'm reaching a goal. And we feel negative when we feel that we're not getting to our goals. It doesn't mean that the goal is good for you or not.
Yeah.
Right? So people with eating disorders can feel amazing.
Of course. It's
when they reach that goal. Right, it's an accomplishment because they're getting towards what they value. So this, I guess, this disorder, what we're really treating is a shift in what people value.
Exactly. It's a shift in the goal where you do have to give up some goals, right? You do need to give up the goal of losing weight. Do need to give up the goal of being thin. That's really
maybe focus on social other things in life that you have forgotten that are valuable.
Yes, so it's a huge part of treatment is that like we typically have people make a pie chart and we say like what brings value to you, what's important to you
in your life.
And typically people with eating disorders, they will have friends, family, work, whatever, but they will also have their body, and that is usually the biggest slice.
How big have you seen it before? Like
80%, 90%. But when the problem is that when anything is the biggest slice, like if work is the biggest slice, that's also not okay, right? So when your body becomes the biggest slice, it's really dangerous because you're also putting all your eggs in one basket. And the danger of putting your eggs in that basket specifically, like in the basket of body and looks, is that looks change. Right? They change with age, they change with pregnancy, they change with anything. So it's a risk because your body can change and people think that they have full control over it, but you can only fight and manipulate biology for so long. Some people do it, right? They manipulate biology and they get down to that weight that they want, 100%, but not without the consequences that come with eating disorders.
Yeah, because you're literally tying everything of yourself to one specific goal. That's your God.
Yeah.
I don't care what you said. That is your value structures, and whatever your value structure is, whatever that's you're serving that, you're bowing down to that.
Yeah, and eating disorders make you more often than not go against your values, right? So when we look again at the pros and cons of like, what is the eating disorder taking from you? It's taking away my values. Like this is not what I value.
Now you're having
conflicting. Yeah.
There you go. Wow, that was great. I love that because it ties. It's interesting. It ties into also my background and perception of values. So that was really cool.
Yeah, people are happiest when they're sticking to their values, right?
Yes.
And I think it's also important to say that there's happiness and there's safety, right? And the feeling of safety always feels better than happiness. People like to feel comfortable. People like to be in what's familiar and they like to feel safe. That's why people stay in unhealthy relationships. They have unhealthy patterns. They don't want to break them because 100%. Happiness is unfamiliar. It's new. It's unpredictable. They don't want to get their hopes up. But the truth is that choosing safety is not always choosing happiness. It's choosing safety is choosing comfort. Happiness is very often uncomfortable, but we get the happiness.
I always say, you know, there's like nice quotes out there, and I'm proud of this one because this is my own. I always say that there's a risk in not taking a risk in life.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yep. There's a risk in not taking risks.
Yeah.
You know, people are always afraid to take a risk, but then what's the risk in not taking that? You know, what are you missing out on?
Yeah, I think that like connects directly to vulnerability, where so many people struggle to be vulnerable and they'll have a wall up, but without taking, and let's say like with dating, right? Like if you're dating and you're kind of like, I don't want to put myself out there. That's fine. Don't put yourself out there. But you're also, without taking that risk, you will never develop a real connection. You're losing out.
You trying to be safe is more risky than taking a risk.
Exactly, right? And you're giving up so much. And I always say, like, this is not my quote, for sure not, but I love it. Yeah. Like, if you can't beat fear, no. What is it?
The biggest thing we have to fear is fear itself?
No. If you can't beat fear, do it scared.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
In other words, you can be afraid of skydiving, but you could still jump out of the plane.
Yeah.
You can have fear around dating, but you can still go on the date.
Oh, yeah. People think that they in order to take action, they think in order to take action, I can't be afraid first.
Exactly.
Opposite. Go in with the fear.
Exactly.
That's what
nothing's
confidence
going to change.
People think that confidence is not being afraid. Not true.
No.
Confidence is doing the action while afraid.
Yeah.
That's confidence.
Exactly.
Love it. Yeah,
So true.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is great. So, okay, maybe we'll do other topics because like we're
There's a lot to go over.
yeah, but like so fine. But let's go back to this. So this is cool. So I guess we could hit on body dysmorphia for a little bit. So with the brain. So riffing off that, literally people see, literally, it's funny, and I saw a video of this, how a guy, this therapist, literally drew, like on paper. So he had this client, this girl who came in, and she said, my thigh is bigger than your thigh. Clearly, it wasn't.
Right.
He had to draw it out on paper.
Yeah.
His thigh was clearly
technique.
bigger, and he showed it to her. She couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yes, because the
What the
brain,
hell's going on with that? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yes, but the brain is playing tricks on you again. Like sometimes you like that body dysmorphia. It's somewhat delusional because the brain.
Let's explain
is
it for
not
people.
functioning.
What do people think? You want to explain it? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So body dysmorphia, right, is a separate diagnosis from an eating disorder, where you can focus on, and it's not necessarily just feeling fat or thinking that you're fat. Like you can focus on your nose, you can focus on like anything in your body. But we see a lot of the symptoms of body dysmorphia in eating disorders. Right. One, because the brain's not functioning properly, and the best way for your eating disorder to keep you trapped is to convince you that you're fat.
Right.
Right. If you think you're thin, like great, I don't need you anymore eating disorder. And like I said, it will do anything to stay alive. So typically what we see is someone will look in the mirror and, sometimes like with eating disorders, they will feel okay about their body. They'll be like, oh, like I look okay today, typically in the morning, right, when their stomach's flat. And then, an hour later, they'll look at their arm and they'll be like, wait, well, my arm looks so much bigger. And there'll be a lot of obsessive body checking and looking in the mirror. And for people to understand that body checking is not just looking in the mirror, it's also feeling your body in the shower when you're laying down, pinching parts of your body. All that keeps your eating disorder alive because it keeps the obsession and the thoughts of the body in the front of the mind.
So it's tricking you
with
your perception.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's keeping you obsessed, right? It's not that people without eating disorders don't think about their body. They absolutely do, but it comes to the front and then it goes to the back. Right. People with eating disorders, it's always in the front. So the thing about mirrors also is that they're very dangerous, okay? Because mirrors are just not accurate, right? One, they're not accurate.
What do you mean not accurate? What does that mean?
In other words, you could look different in every mirror, right? And it doesn't necessarily, when you look in the mirror, it doesn't always reflect exactly how you look, right?
How you're being perceived by others.
Exactly. So like if you stand in front of the mirror and I go and draw a line at the top of your head and a line at the bottom of your head, and you go stand next to that, it's not going to be the same, right? And I think people don't realize that. And I think that people also look in the mirror and they're trying to compare their body from 2 hours ago or the day before. But unless you have a photographic memory, it's just not possible. You think you can compare the two, but you absolutely can't. And it's the same thing with pictures. If you took a picture at 9 a.m. and then you took a picture at 12 p.m., the angle could have been different, right? You don't actually look any different in those 3 hours.
I mean, look, in the same night, you could have a horrible picture of yourself and an amazing picture.
Exactly, right? Within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why looking back at pictures is dangerous. Looking in the mirror, all these things keep the eating disorder maintained. It lets the eating disorder say, like, see, look, like you don't look okay. Exactly. But yeah, I think with the symptoms of body dysmorphia, we kind of always attribute it to mental processing, where we say, this is something that's going on in your head. You're fixating on your body, you're trying to avoid something else. Yeah. And listen, if your brain is malnourished, then we usually say like these thoughts and obsessions will decrease. The anxiety does always decrease as your brain gets fed more. Does it go away completely? No.
And I also want to make this point that we're asking potential clients to trust us because that's a leap of faith to trust that their perceptions are off. That I see myself as fat. What do you mean? I literally see it in the mirror. Yeah. And then you have a therapist who's like, not really. Yeah. And it's a hard buy. It's a hard buy for these clients, but it's true though. And we're asking them to take a leap of faith, to trust.
Yeah. That's why rapport is so important. Like you need to have a good relationship with whoever you're working with. Yeah. And if you're seeing a therapist and you feel like the relationship's off, like don't be afraid to first say something. I always say like first tell them, right? Maybe it's a miscommunication. It can either strengthen the relationship or right, if you have the conversation and it's really still not going the way that you want it to, you can find someone else.
I want to let people know this. if you feel you're totally allowed to tell your therapist that you feel that their technique is off, or that you they
100%. We want to hear it.
we want to hear it. We're dying to hear that. Like, and I think that therapist that doesn't want to hear that is a bad therapist. I always literally go out at my first session. I tell people when they come in, please, if you ever feel like you're afraid to tell me something, tell me.
100%. Rather you tell me you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm a big
Yeah,
girl.
open
I can handle
relationship.
it.
Yeah, open conversation where you can say literally anything, you know, and
Yeah.
because really my intention is literally just is for both of us to try and figure out what's going on and to best help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into what role trauma plays. So we touched on this so much during this podcast, but I still want to kind of put it all together for viewers. So, because trauma can play a huge effect. When people go through things in life, we have reactions to those things, and I think that's actually the reason why people don't necessarily have mental disorders. In my view, I feel like people, I feel like these things are just reactions to struggles in life.
Yeah, everyone's dealing with something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mental illness.
Right, and when we struggle in life, the weakest part of us, or not even the weakest part, but parts of us try to react to that to help us. And I feel like that's what an eating disorder could be.
Yeah.
It serves a function. It serves a purpose. It's usually in reaction to something else happening in our lives.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
So, which could be trauma.
100%. And there's little trauma and big trauma, right? And for people that don't know, like big trauma is more you're in a hurricane, a car
Huge
crash,
traumas.
sexual abuse, physical
Right.
abuse, anything like that. And then you have like those little traumas, which is, your parents maybe put a lot of pressure on you, or, you weren't given,
you got
were
cheated
given a lot
on,
of
or
criticism.
right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly, right? A lot of the little traumas tend to happen in childhood with attachment and things like that. But that's a whole nother conversation. But it doesn't matter what the trauma is. The point is that eating disorders are there to numb painful events and painful experiences and painful feelings, because, like we said, humans do not want to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And the truth is, when we're young and we're developing and we're trying to get through life, we feel like there's no time to sit in this discomfort. Like, we got to keep going.
Yeah.
And so eating disorders help us in that way too. Like, they help us keep going. They help us block out what we feel like we need to block out, that we feel like will cripple us emotionally. And we kind of just get to keep moving and pretend like it's not happening. And it works for a while until it doesn't.
Works. That's the magic word, that it works.
It works until it
strategy that
doesn't.
works, and then-
Eventually, things will always catch up with us. And typically, when we're suppressing emotions, we almost always see it come out in behaviors.
100%.
Yeah.
It'll fight back.
Exactly. So when you have, someone who's having an outburst, or someone who's, engaging in unhealthy relationships or behavior patterns, is all typically because of suppressed emotions. So if we can get to the core of what's actually going on inside of you,
Yeah.
typically those behaviors just kind of disintegrate on their own.
And healing that part of you. And so again, just for people who's listening, again, if you feel that your trauma is related to, that might be fueling your eating disorder, I highly recommend IFS. Ruthie here is amazing at it as well. So yeah, look into your resources. Okay, so let's go into, this is a huge one. So this is awesome. What role does culture and society play in the development of eating disorders?
Okay. Huge topic.
Huge.
Right? Because a big part of, people always say, what causes an eating disorder? And there is no one answer.
Many.
It's all over. Yes, sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes it's the diet culture. Sometimes it's your home life. It doesn't really matter to me. But in reality, yes, diet culture in our society does provoke eating disorders, and it does keep us locked into eating disorders. So, for example, a lot of eating disorders will start off with normal behaviors that, like, a lot of other people are doing. People are dieting, people are exercising, but it's the person with an eating disorder that will cross the line, right? So if you have, a few friends in high school where they're like, okay, let's go on a diet together. You'll have like one girl who will cheat the next day, the other one that's like, I was really just in it for the fun, and someone who's like on and off, like they'll do good for 2 days and then kind of get off of it. And then you'll have one that does it really well, right? And then the problem is that
Puts the pressure
she
on.
gets praised for it.
Yep.
Wow, you did it, you're so disciplined. And they truly believe, like, I'm just dieting, right? I'm just exercising. I'm just, controlling
Remember
my
you said
weight.
earlier, I want to put this in because I don't think we got a chance to. I'm sick of dieting. Remember you wanted to talk about that point?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and we get it. First, we feel it, right? Where we're like, wow, I'm so good at dieting. Like, I have the ability to fight this hunger. I can do something that the rest of the people around me can't do. They gave into their hunger. I didn't. right? And society sees that as a good thing. If you can control your eating and maintain your weight, that is praised in society.
Power also, yeah.
Exactly. Weight loss is seen as a good thing across the board. But when people get the education about eating disorders, what they learn is that sometimes weight gain is a good sign, and sometimes weight loss is a really unhealthy sign.
Right.
Right. So I think that the other thing about society and like the world that we live in is that comparison making, when we compare ourselves to others, also keeps us locked in our eating disorder. So when you're walking down the street, we tend to have that tunnel vision where we will typically focus, and this is even people without eating disorders, they'll typically focus on someone who's more beautiful than them, right? So they'll block out everybody else and they'll focus on people that are their same gender, around their same age, and they'll look at their body and they'll kind of say like, oh, they look better than me, or they have better hair, or whatever it is that you're typically insecure about.
I'm ugly, I'm whatever.
Exactly. It depends on what you're insecure about. If you're insecure about your hair, it's usually the first thing you'll notice about a person. If you're insecure about your body, your nose, whatever, you'll focus on that. So comparison making is a big problem, right? Especially with social media and Instagram. There's just a lot being filtered, a lot going around. You know, back in the day, it was like just magazines and billboards. Now we have access to that on our phones 24/7. And it's people that we know, and it's people that we see all the time. So it's really, really hard, I think, for girls and even adults this day and age, where there's a lot of comparison making going on, and it's very easy to do because there's so much access to it.
Well, I'm writing a paper on social media and its effects, and I'm learning a lot. I've learned so much about social media. It's very true. Social media plays a huge role, especially. So we're talking about culture, but specifically social media. So there's two types. You know, you could either be. So this is what the paper is really. What I really speak about is, you know, there's content creation and content consumption. There's output and there's input. So in terms of output, we literally feel good when we're putting out content out there. We get likes, and also it
increases the dopamine.
Of course, it's a dopamine hit, and not only that, this is the most interesting thing, that when you're also putting out that content out there, the amount of likes that you're going to get in the sendouts it's a variable. So you don't know when you're going to get those likes, and it mimics casino. It mimics like gambling in the casino.
Like the high that you get.
Yeah, but instead of playing with cash, you're playing with likes. Right, and so that's really what's happening, and so you're literally like. You know, so it's literally built to make you have an addiction. That's output, and in terms of input, like you said earlier, what you're seeing online, the algorithm is literally designed to catch onto what you desire, on what you value, and so you're literally just going to have all of those things pop up, and it's going to really put you down. The antidote to that, what I have found, there's never the antidote, but one thing that could really help is learning how to value yourself instead of valuing people's opinions. I find, I'll add this in very quickly. King David and King Shaul. So this is a huge. If you open it up and just read it, I read their stories like literally just in the text. Shaul was very concerned with how people perceived him, public opinion, and that's what made him. That's what kind of led to his downfall. And literally, he got pressured by the people. Right. And all of a sudden we're becoming a puppet, like Pinocchio. Also, if you watch that movie, it's the same thing. And David literally was tested on how he was going to react when people were putting their opinions forth towards him, and he literally always put God first, his value, what he deemed worthy first. When he was dancing in the streets, and his wife said, "Oh, you can't do this in front of the people." He said, "No, I don't care. I'm dancing in the streets because we got he got the ark back." So whatever. That's a great story to highlight that. I know I got a little off topic, but I think it comes together. Anything on that? Anything that you want to talk about? So
no, I think it's just important for people to remember that to live your life and be happy, you don't have to be perfect. You can care what other people think. It all goes back to that pie chart, as long as it's not the biggest slice.
Because we're always going to care.
Exactly. But just don't want the slice to be too big.
Yes, and one more thing I also wanted to, the risk of, I think we didn't touch on this, the risk of commenting on people's bodies. I think we were going to get to that. Yeah, so you want to talk about that? Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of risk with commenting on people's bodies because you can't always see eating disorders. Like we said, a lot of them are invisible. And if someone has an eating disorder and doesn't realize it, and you comment on their body and you give them a compliment, it makes them keep going, right? Where someone tells them they look great, what I'm doing is working, I'm restricting, it's working, I'm throwing up, it's working, let me keep doing it, right? Oh, I binged. I don't want someone to notice my body. I have to keep doing that. All comes from the external validation that we get from the outside. And then on the other hand, if someone's trying to recover and they're struggling with weight gain or they're struggling with just how they feel about their body, and you go and compliment them on your body, your intentions are pure. You're trying to give them a compliment even, but it's very risky because now you've just brought the importance of their body back to the front of their mind when they're trying so hard to put it behind them. And you're kind of feeding that eating disorder where it's kind of saying like, see, your body is really important. People
You're
are
triggering
noticing
that
it.
voice to become alive again.
Exactly, when they're
And
trying so hard to put it behind them.
Yeah, but what do we tell girls now? Now some girls are gonna be afraid to be like, oh, you look great. Like, so
Great,
what do
they
we...
should be afraid. Nobody, I cannot say this enough. Do not compliment anyone. There is absolutely no reason for the 10% of people that might feel flattered. It is just not
It's a
worth
trap.
it.
It could be a trap.
Exactly. It's not worth it for the other 90% because even if someone doesn't have an eating disorder, like I've heard people tell me, like someone told me I look so great, I look so thin, but it's because I'm so stressed I can't eat because of whatever's going on at
You
home
don't know
with
what's
my
going on in the
family.
background. Like
It's
they're
just-
frazzled, right?
There's no benefit to it. There's no reason. It's not worth it. Do not comment on people's bodies, and nothing that has to do with the body. Don't ask people if they're pregnant. Do not if someone's pregnant, they'll tell you if they want to tell you, right? There's no need to ask somebody.
Right.
Right? People, it's just do not comment
Personally.
on people's bodies. That's it. Black and white. It's not a gray area. Oh, could I say this? Could I say that? Nope, don't say anything.
I like your stance. You have a strong stance on it.
Because I just don't,
And
I guess
I like it.
before I got into the field, I understood it. Like, it's great, you're socializing, you're like, you look great, but it's just, now that I know what I know,
You have the whole
it's
picture.
just not worth the risk.
Right.
Some of the time, it may, someone really might leave and be like, wow, I feel so good. But at the end of the day, it's not worth hurting the one person that is struggling and trying to recover, or people are telling them they have an eating disorder and they can't believe it because, look, it's really true. People do notice my body. They do compliment it. I do get praised. I want more of it. It's just not worth
You
it.
can hurt someone by complimenting them on their weight.
100%.
Yeah. And it's something that we have to drive home. And
Yeah. And then when you get compliments and then they stop, now you're like, oh no, like what's wrong? Did I gain weight? People are noticing. Now
Right.
it's complimenting.
Now let's say it's
the
taken
whole
away.
thing is just no reason.
it kind of reminds me of when like parents, I guess, kind of reward their kids based off of like achievement
Yeah.
instead of character.
They start to attach it to their self-worth.
Right. They attach it to their self. Their
and then
identity.
if they don't
Yeah.
accomplish, they feel terrible.
Yeah, it's like, oh, like amazing, son. I can't believe you you got that hit, or you did amazing on that test.
Yeah.
Now there's pressure to be. Now let's say when they fail that next test.
And there's nothing wrong with complimenting your kids
It's the
and
way you
telling them what they did. It's about adding that other part.
Right.
Right? The part of like, I'll love you no matter what. Like, you did amazing, and like there's also room for mistakes, and like I'll still love you and I'll still feel this proud of you.
Right.
Or it's not about what you did, it's about that you tried, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, you did, instead of like, I guess you did great on that test. It's more like, wow, you worked so hard on that test and you happened to be
Exactly.
to get 100.
People shouldn't stop complimenting their kids, right? I think that there's a lot of thoughts about like gentle parenting and things like that, and I definitely agree with so many parts of it, but we can still compliment our kids. We have to just make sure we're doing the second half.
Right, what is it based on? Is it based on character, inner or outer external factors that are beyond our control?
Exactly.
So, okay, so I guess to put all of this together, so I guess to end off, how can we best treat an eating disorder and how can family members help? So let's do those two things, right? So first, the individual. So
if someone's like in my office, right, what are we doing? It's basically, it's very individualized, right? So the gold standard for treatment for eating disorders is CBTE, right? It's considered the gold standard where it's very structured, it's very functional, it's very efficient, where you get into a pattern of regular eating. We have people recording what they're eating, recording their thoughts and feelings. And the main purpose is to, again, get to those maintaining mechanisms of the eating disorder. So I like to think of the eating disorder as like a house of cards. You pull out, right? This is from CBTE. You pull out the bottom cards. Everything else will kind of come crashing down. So some of those maintaining mechanisms are like body checking, comparison making, having that very big pie slice, feeling fat, all those behaviors get tackled, the food rules. And that's a little bit of what CBTE looks like. But at the end of the day, it really depends on what the person's coming in with. Some people do come in and say, like, I want this structure, but sometimes you need to pull from other modalities. Like, you need to pull distress tolerance skills from DBT. You need to pull the psychodynamic, like we said, to figure out what, caused the eating disorder to
That's the
develop.
individualized approach.
Exactly. There is the IFS where it's like, well, this is a part of you and can we be compassionate towards it? So in general, when you're treating an eating disorder, there's, you want to make sure that the person's eating regularly and eating enough. You can't really do the treatment without that. You need that physical part. And then you have the emotional, psychological, which you could choose from any modality.
And I like that because I also feel like some of the best therapists out there are the ones who have these different views. Because what I've noticed is that different problems need different ways of treating. And not only that, you could have the same, two people could have the same problem, but they could take to different forms of treatment.
Absolutely.
And that's why I try to educate myself in the best way possible. I feel like good therapists know how to really just get the most education that they can across different modalities, and they know how to integrate that, put that in for the individual that comes in.
Exactly.
So that's very important for us therapists to know, because I also feel like it's important for therapists to be humble and to know, we have a lot to learn as well.
100%.
So that's the best way. I feel like that's the best way for us to help our clients.
Yeah. And I think for someone who's struggling with anorexia, depending on the severity, you typically, at least the way that I like to work is to have somewhat of a team, right? To have a dietitian, to have a doctor, and to have a therapist, and for them to work together to really help you. And there's also different levels of care with eating disorders, right? There is inpatient, which exists, right? Which again, you do see that overlap with addiction. It's like rehab for eating disorders, where they can go, they can live there, they can have their meals, they have therapy, they have, everything being monitored. And then there's like day programs where they sleep at home, but they go all day. And then there's the outpatient, which is like if they're coming to me and then they're going to the doctor and they're meeting with their dietitian.
Yeah. So I also have one more thing, and then I'll try to put it together. So there's also I have showing blood work to girls can really snap them out of it.
Yes. So that kind of gets into how do we help someone, right?
Yeah.
How do we help someone get into treatment? Like, do we feel like we should jump into this? Are you ready?
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
That part?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's in the same realm.
Yeah. So there's two levels, right? There's someone who's in complete denial, and then there's someone who's like already in treatment, let's say, right? So let's start with the denial. If someone's in complete denial, or they're kind of like on and off about it, like maybe I have a problem, maybe I don't. First of all, you need to kind of approach it with compassion. Right, and a lot of people think you have to be aggressive to get people into treatment, but you can get the same message across with compassion that you can with aggression, right? You say the words differently, whatever it is.
This goes to family members as well, by the way.
Family members, friends,
This is huge.
Everybody. If you have someone who you think has an eating disorder and you feel like they need treatment, first of all, if you know someone who you think has an eating disorder, they need to be in treatment, right? You're not going to be able to save them from this. It doesn't matter how many times you ask them to eat with you. Like, they need professional help, and they need to do it. It needs to come from them in a lot of ways. They need a push, yes, but a gentle push, right? A compassionate push, a place from love, not a place from judgment and shame.
Force, right?
And not, it's your fault. Like, you did this to yourself, right? None of that. So the best way to get people into treatment is, one, making their eating disorder uncomfortable. Again, does not have to be done with aggression. You don't have to say,
Not so easy.
Exactly. So you don't have to say, oh, you have an eating disorder, look, right? Because they'll just push you away. Like we said in the beginning, the eating disorder will fight anyone that comes in its path. But when you come with love and compassion, the eating disorder feels that too. So the best way to do it is kind of like I realize these changes in you. Like, I'm noticing you're not socializing as much, or you're not coming around, or you changed your eating, right? The truth is, for anyone that's not sure, go talk to a therapist and, have them help you, get someone into treatment, have like a consultation. But calling out the eating disorder is the best way. It makes it uncomfortable. It, eventually will bring awareness, because eating disorders, they thrive on isolation and secrecy. It's very hard to have friendships and relationships if you have an eating disorder, right? The eating disorder just wants to be you and the eating disorder. It doesn't want anyone else around.
Private relationship.
Exactly. So once you kind of, and then also the other thing is, like, I always kind of tell people, if they're convinced that they're fine, great. Approach it and say, like, I know you think you're fine. If you're truly fine, amazing. Like, let's just go check it out then, and let's confirm. Let's go to a therapist, get evaluated, or go to the doctor, right? And typically if someone's really malnourished, if you go to the doctor, you're like, yeah, their labs will come back in poor shape. Like there will be a low heart rate or electrolyte imbalance. So they'll just get the education and they'll kind of be shocked into it because it's hard to argue with blood results. So sometimes that is also the best way to get someone to accept that they have an eating disorder. Again, they don't have to be at the stage of accepting help. First, you have to get to the point where you have accepted that you have an eating disorder. Then you can kind of get the help. And so on that note, unless there's something you want to say on that.
No, it's very well said.
Okay, thanks. But
That's good.
to get to, what do you do? How do you help a friend or a family member who's in treatment already? So if they're in, actually I'll say this too.
Yeah.
If someone's like in the phase of searching for treatment, it's very helpful to do a lot of the legwork for them. Because like we said, the brain has a hard time making decisions. Right. And so it's gonna go back and forth and back and forth. And like if you call the therapist, right, and they miss the call, they'll just be like, forget it. Find them the therapist, find them the doctor, find them dietitian, do the hard stuff, make the appointment.
The logistics.
Exactly, drive them there. I don't care, whatever it is. Do get through the logistics for them. Get rid of all those barriers for them if they need it, right? Depends on the person. Now, if someone's in treatment already, first of all, it's people want their friends and family to get better immediately. Right. So sometimes they get frustrated, like, why isn't this working?
Right. And that's a part of them also, right?
Exactly.
That wants to help too.
Exactly. It's coming from a place of love. And I think that sometimes people do say the wrong thing and it's unintentional, right? A lot is just the lack of education because they don't know what it feels like.
What might they say?
Well, like, just eat. Like, I don't get it. Why can't you eat?
Why can't they don't understand it?
Right. Like, I don't understand. It's something like we eat every day. Why can't you eat?
It's like telling a car to go, but under the hood, like the engine is all like it's all over the place.
Exactly. So the truth is, for family and friends, it's great to like consult 1 or 2 sessions with a therapist on like some coaching on how to support the person that you're supporting. And I think the most important things is to be compassionate, to show that you're not judging them, to show that you're trying to understand. And even if you don't understand, you will still love them. No matter what, like just be their friend, just be their mother. Like they don't want their eating disorder to be their whole life, so don't make it their whole life.
The more that you're frustrated, impatient, upset at the individual who's struggling, I would say don't even offer that help. I feel like you should step back.
It just makes them push you away.
It makes it worse. So step back, because the Hippocratic oath, do no harm. Right before we do anything else. And so, if you're trying to help, a family member or a friend that you feel is struggling with these kind of issues, first check in with yourself and make sure that you're ready to help them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you may really need to take a step back. Like if you take the step of like getting the coaching, but it's really, listen, for some people it is hard to watch. It doesn't mean they don't love the person.
Of course. Doesn't mean,
like you said, if you feel like you're truly not equipped, right, sometimes it can do more harm than good. But I think also if you're going to take a step back, letting the person know, like, I love you and I see that this is hard for me because I love you so much. And that's why I'm taking a step back. Not because I'm judging you, not because I think that you did this to yourself, because I care so much and I want you to get the best possible help. Right. And I think the most important thing is letting them know that you can be there for them, that you will not abandon them. And really what's most helpful, because people with eating disorders do sometimes have a hard time asking for help, is like asking them, like, I want to be here for you. What do you need from me? And if they don't know, if they're like, I don't know what I need, okay, so go talk to your therapist and tell them that I asked and figure out what you need and let me know. Right? Because you're not a mind reader and you might say the wrong thing. So it's best to hear from the person. This is across the board, eating disorder, no eating disorder. Ask the person what they need, right? Because they are the best source of information. And I love
that also they said that they're the best source of information, because I look at my clients as not, as like
they're the experts.
I was just gonna say expert. They're the expert. And I don't like therapists who come in. I'm talking about therapists now, but like who come in and saying they're the expert. No, your client is the expert.
Yeah, they're the expert on their own life.
They teach us what's going on. They tell us what's going on. They give us the information. Then we use that information to best help them.
Yeah,
so it goes back
onto
right.
them.
And so that's how it really works out. So just to to put this together, there's 2 elements of this. The bringing someone into treatment and how the treatment actually goes. I like how you touched on bringing them into treatment, and just I guess to reflect on the actual treatment itself. There's different types of treatment. There's different types of therapists. Find a therapist that works for you. Find a therapist that you really feel that helps you. You could even therapist shop, like go to 2-3 therapists, see who you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And, once you get that relationship down and that team down, hopefully you'll get the treatment you need. So great. My last question is something I'm doing new on this podcast. So this podcast is called HTML, How to Master Life.
Okay. Nervous.
How do you master I guess eating, or how can you best master eating habits?
Okay, great question. And I think it ties back to so many things that we touched on. First of all, you don't necessarily need to master your eating habits, right, to have healthy eating habits. So, yes, someone might skip breakfast, okay, but then they'll make up for it in other ways, like they'll eat a bigger lunch, right, things like that. You want to think of food and your eating habits as nourishing your body. That's why I keep emphasizing the idea that food is this great experience, yes, but it's also this thing that helps us function, that nourishes our body, exactly, for health. So when you think about eating, you want to get to that place of intuitive eating where you can eat and you can listen to your body and you can listen to your hunger cues. And you can kind of say like, yeah, I feel more full today, or I feel hungrier today. And people typically don't like to feel hungrier than usual, and it makes them judge themselves, but they forget, like, I don't know, maybe they exercised more yesterday, or maybe, whatever makes people hungry, right? Maybe they're on their period, different things, right? Maybe they're stressed. Maybe they're not feeling good, so their hunger decreased. But we have to start, the way to master eating is to listen to your hunger cues and to listen to them with an open mind without judgment. Because if you are hungrier on Tuesday than you were on Monday, that is okay. And your weight is probably not going to change as long as you're listening to your hunger cues. Your weight will somewhat be stable and you'll be okay. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we covered that before that point, and it's a great point that, the priority of the function of the real function of what eating is really supposed to do for you, and I guess how to negotiate, like it's kind of like negotiating, like these different parts of these things that demand certain things, your hunger, society, people, whatever, and kind of making it more of a peaceful ecosystem within yourself.
Yeah, and the best way to really master eating habits is to disconnect the value that you're putting on your body, because that preoccupation, that overvaluation of weight and shape is what's affecting your eating.
Great.
Right? If you can work on that, the obsession and the overvaluation, right, putting too much value on it, then your eating will somewhat fall into place, because you won't need to use eating to control your body anymore. Your body will be your body and food will be food.
Any last words that you would like to say on the podcast?
I don't think so. I think that this is great. I think that if anyone has any questions, they never have to hesitate to reach out to me. Like, I'm happy if someone's just worried about if they have an eating disorder, if their friend has an eating disorder, or a family member, feel free to reach out to me. We will talk. We'll go over it. Like, I'm here to help. I'm very happy to help people. I want to help people. And they don't need to, it doesn't have to be a commitment, right? If they have one question, like, I'm here to answer it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was an amazing podcast, guys. Stay tuned, because next week I think we're going to have another episode on what therapy is and how to get the best therapist for you. So, but in terms of this podcast, this was amazing. And thanks for really coming on. This was really fantastic.
Thanks for having me. It was amazing.
Appreciate it. Okay.